Oh, and this time in the intro, we're going to play a little game. At some point during this intro, I'm going to point at you. Okay, and then you just finish the intro. Okay. Hello and welcome to Literally Me, the official Ryan Gosling podcast,
We talk about
where we talk about Ryan Gosling movies one by one. I'm Dean's Beans, and as always, I'm joined by
Dean's Beans.
yes, hello, Harlan, aka Fluffy Duffy. I had that
Oh,
idea about half an hour ago, and I was like, "That's really funny. I'm going to remember that because I knew you were going to do something like that and just panic."
you know me too well. There's a reason you do these intros
Yeah,
most of the time.
you've still got the fear in your eyes. Please,
Because the moment you like throw it to me, my head goes blank. I don't know what to say. It's similar to being like when we have a guest on
yeah,
and like I know their name, I
yeah.
know their username, but the moment I'm like, Newt's Films.
I think every time we have a guest, we're both sitting there with our phone in front of us, open on their TikTok page, being like, "Yes, I know who this person is."
Well, the thing that sounds bad. We do know who the people are. We do know who we bring on, and we're
Yeah.
always fans of the people we bring on.
One of us is, as
No,
in,
no, no. I
no,
would say that we
no.
all
I'm
are.
saying sometimes one of us, one like you will be like, "Hey, I've got this mutual to invite on," and I'll be like, "Okay, I don't know who they are, but that sounds good." It's not me, disliking
Yeah,
anyone,
yeah. I get what you mean. I get what you mean.
but
All right, but Dean.
there's two people that have been on this podcast that I hate. One of them's Harlan, the other one's myself. Okay, so every week we talk about that went a
Bars.
direction I wasn't expecting. Every week we
You're right,
talk
Dean.
about a hey, I'm here to talk about Ryan Gosling, not myself. Okay,
So
um,
true.
Amen, brother. We're going through Ryan Gosling movies one by one. Harlan, we've hit a milestone this week. This is the 10th Ryan Gosling film we are talking about, and it is his 10th film.
Wow.
What are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about Fracture
Yeah. The difference
movies.
with this podcast compared to our last podcast, and sorry to change the subject a little bit,
Mhm.
is that a lot of the time we don't really like we'll decide a time to record and we both just assume what film we're watching and we never like confirm with each other what film it is. And for the last 10 weeks, every single week, there's been a moment where I'm like, has one of us watched the wrong film? Because we wouldn't find out until this moment in recording it. Huh?
Did you watch the wrong film?
No, I watched Fracture.
Okay.
Could you, has that thought never crossed your mind?
No, because I just if I'm confused, I just look up the IMDb.
Fair enough.
And I trust you watched the right film because you're British. So that I don't really, like I have a podcast with a co-host that's British.
Yeah,
You have one with a co-host that's American.
yeah.
I think your doubts are more justified than my non-existent doubts.
Fair enough, fair enough. Okay. Do you want to just give us a brief summary of this film, please?
Sure. Brief summary of this movie. It's a classic like lawyer, like lawyer film like Fear,
Mm-hmm.
Primal Fear. I mean, movies like that where it's you have this lawyer who's trying to convict a criminal, and the lawyer is played by Ryan Gosling, who has a 97% conviction rate, and
Mm-hmm.
then the criminal is played by Anthony Hopkins, who in the beginning of the film we saw him murder his wife, but the
Kablam.
guy's so smart that he's able to get out of it. He's able to use the legal system to his advantage and make all the evidence void. And so it's kind of a game of
Cat and mouse.
enough. Did I
Yep.
appease you?
You have appeased me greatly. Um,
Wonderful.
yeah, so this film came out in 2007. It was directed by a guy called Gregory Hoblit. I haven't seen any of his other films. Ryan Gosling is 26 in this film. So he's getting on in years at this point. Um, I'm trying to look at films in 2007, but my letterbox is taking its time.
Oh, I know which one I want.
Go on.
Spider-Man 3.
Oh, sorry. If you don't know, every year we choose our favorite film from the respective year. This film came out. Harlan is saying his favorite film from 2007 is Spider-Man 3. Mine is loading. What do you think mine is?
I don't know, probably the number 23.
I've never seen it.
Oh, really? It's a bad movie. Maybe
Yeah, so
Zodiac. No, you don't like Chris.
film.
Well,
Yeah,
I messed up
Zodiac's a
directors.
solid film. My letterbox is still calculating.
Blade Runner.
Blade Runner.
Oh no, that doesn't make any sense. The direct final cut came out
Oh, okay.
2007.
Okay, I'm going to use
I should
Google because this really does want to load. It's going to be something really. It's going to be like,
Alvin and the Chipmunks.
oh, of course,
Juno.
Fantastic Four. Great film.
Fantastic Four: Rise of Silver Surfer.
Super. Oh, it's super. I was about to say Superman Returns, but it's Superman Doomsday. My favorite Harry Potter film came out. It's not my favorite one. I don't know what my favorite one is. Do you know what is a great film from this year? Sunshine.
Never seen that. Is
Yes.
that a documentary?
No, Sunshine is it's a film about that it's like set in the future and the sun is dying and these guys need to go restart the sun and it's Chris Evans is in it, Benedict Wong is in it. It's a solid film.
Hmm,
I'm gonna
interesting.
go. I'm
Cillian
gonna go with
Murphy.
Sunshine. Yeah, I forget Cillian Murphy's in it. I'll go with
Cillian Murphy.
Sunshine.
Okay. But before I just a quick little just addressing something real quick. We didn't have a podcast last week,
Yeah,
and I feel like we've done pretty good getting weekly podcasts out every week.
yeah,
So just gonna address it real quick. Me and Dean had a little bit of a inconvenient vacation period where
yeah,
I went on vacation for 1 week and then he went on vacation for the next week. And
yeah.
so we just weren't able to get 3 podcasts in.
And it feels like it hasn't been that long since we last recorded together.
I disagree. I feel like it's been a while since we've recorded.
Fair enough. It has been a while, but I'm just saying to me,
Fair
um,
enough.
you can tell by how naturally we're bouncing off each other today that it's been like no time has passed at all.
Um, what did this move make in the box office?
This movie made 92 million at the box office. Do you know what the budget was?
I'm gonna guess
Go on, give
maybe
me a guess. I wanted you to guess.
75 million.
Oh, Harlan, I was surprised by this too. 10 million.
Really?
Yeah,
Well then, good for this movie.
exactly. It made its money back and then some. It's like that's tiny. And I guess there's nothing in this film that would be expensive other than like Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins, and to be fair, Ryan Gosling is a big name at
At
this
this
point.
at this point, yeah, I don't think he'd be getting the big bucks though.
Yeah, I agree, but like if you look at like he is, there's two heads on the poster, and
Yes,
it's
that's true.
Hopkins and God. Like he's not a nobody at this point.
Yeah. This film got 72% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and then a 73% with audiences.
Before getting into your thoughts on the
Hmm.
film,
Hmm.
do you agree with that rating?
Yes.
I I could get a little bit nitpicky, but
Yeah.
yes, I agree.
Okay.
I
Well,
think that's around where I would fall.
I'm glad you're feeling nitpicky because we have the plan is to discuss this film for an extended period of time. Um,
Hmm.
so do you want to kick us off with your general thoughts?
Okay, I will. I think the strength of this film
Yeah.
is the two performances
Hmm. The
of
guys
Anthony
on
Hopkins and Ryan Gosling.
Anthony Hopkins.
Um, I think this movie, I do get a kick out of these like cat and mouse movies. I think they're fun to
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the way this movie is structured by the opening of the film being the murder
Yeah.
was really interesting because
Yeah.
it kind of puts
It,
you,
it gives you a different outlook. It's kind of like I feel like we mention this film every single time we have a film a bit like this. It's a bit like Knives Out, where you're like, oh, you see what you
oh yeah,
maybe more like Glass Onion, where you're like, you see what happens, and then you just have to try and figure out how it happened, um, which is kind of what this film is.
you
But
know what though? I disagree. I think it's more like Knives Out, the first one.
Yeah,
because you see the murder
you
and you're
do.
just like, well, that's how it happened.
But then you're like,
And
oh, there's more information on top of that later on in the film.
yeah,
Yeah.
albeit I think what a smart thing this movie does is like, the more I think about it, the more I'm actually kind of impressed by it. But so Anthony Hopkins kills his wife. That's what
Yeah.
happens. And then you see him like throw out his shirt, clean the like he's doing all these weird things that you don't necessarily understand why he's doing it,
Yeah.
and you're kind of confused. But then like there's eureka moments throughout the film. You're like, oh, that's why he was doing this, and that.
Mm.
So that
I
was
think I
interesting.
think in that sense is very well put together. To give my general thoughts, I think once again, this film is carried by the performances, and I think to jump ahead a little bit, I think the performance that really sold this film for me was Anthony Hopkins. I think, as always, he is so good in this film, and
Yeah.
that's no down on anyone else because he had the most to do. Like he's once again playing the murderer who's all like he I'm so clever, and he does that very well. And I think the fact that like because obviously I think there are obvious parallels, some intentional, some unintentional, between this and like the Silence of the Lambs.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah, I think the fact that this he's more of like a dottery old man in this because obviously he's older. I think really plays to its strengths as well.
Yeah, I agree. Um, I think going back to what I was saying earlier, you see Anthony Hopkins kill his wife in the beginning,
Yeah.
but then as soon as it goes to Ryan Gosling, it's Ryan Gosling's movie
Yes.
for the rest of the film.
Yeah.
And I think if it had started like that and we hadn't seen the murder, there would be this whole thing in the audience's mind being like, well, did he actually do it or did he not? And
Yeah.
I think showing that murder was like really interesting way to make you sympathize with the protagonist a little bit more. Also, I forgot to mention this. I am wearing my Kenergy shirt today, and I'm also wearing my Ryan Gosling socks today.
Thank you.
Just thought I should mention that.
Well done. Um, yeah, I think it also does a very good job. It's kind of like a cold open where
Hmm.
I think if you didn't open up with this murder and it was just this Ryan Gosling plot of him going around with his life, I think you would be a bit less invested in it from the jump. And I think the fact it starts with this scene from Anthony Hopkins is really good. And then the way you never see Anthony Hopkins again, unless it's from Ryan Gosling's perspective, I think makes him seem really more like unpredictable and not unpredictable, but like unreadable. Like you don't know what's
Yeah.
going on in this guy's head.
Um, so neither of us think this movie's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you think it's perfect?
Um, I think at times it relies too much on partially this Ryan Gosling subplot with Rosamund Pike. There's a bit of
Mhm.
this love sub story here, side plot, and I think also when it focuses too much on stuff surrounding this murder that isn't Anthony Hopkins being just cool.
What do you mean by that? Like, can you
I
give an
don't know when they
example?
get a bit bogged. I think there are times of not counting stuff like the confession where they get a bit bogged down in the details of it.
I agree with you. The love interest in this film, it it kind of feels a little bit tacked on.
Yeah,
Like at a
I
certain point, he just is like, well, I will say there is a pretty good payoff to it because at the end, spoiler alert, he's like, I need your help. I need you to save this person. And then she's just like, well, what does that have to do with my lawyer company? Because you don't
lawyer
know what I'm
company.
talking about. You don't. You don't. Pointing at the camera, not Dean. Um,
Lawyer, I really
there,
like lawyer company. I can tell you really know. the,
yeah, lawyer company. So
I can tell you
Ryan,
haven't finished Better Call Saul.
nope, I have not. Um, Ryan Gosling's character Willie Beecham
Yeah,
is like this
Willie,
really what?
Willie Beecham,
Willie Beecham. Oh, did
Willie.
I say William?
No, I'm just saying Willie Beecham.
Oh, really?
Special.
I don't know.
Willie Beecham.
I don't know. Anyways, a hotshot prosecutor is about to leave his post for a lucrative job at a private law firm.
Yeah.
So that's when he
No,
gets this.
a lucrative job at a lawyer factory.
Oh, you're right. A lawyer business factory.
Yeah.
Um, but he gets one last case at his prosecuting lawyer factory.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but this private law firm, there's this whole like theme messaging being like, you can just become a lawyer for the money, or you can actually help people. And that's a whole thing going on. And ultimately, he chooses to help people instead of make a lot of money. And there's a good, like, there's a good straw that broke the camel's back moment
Mm.
when he lets like an elevator close on his girlfriend who refuses to save a woman for
Yeah.
her job. So
So,
I thought that was well done, but everything else felt tacked on and it
yeah,
dragged the movie.
I think it does help this Ryan Gosling character feel a bit more. It gives him more stuff to do because I don't think the film would work if it was just him running from Anthony Hopkins scene to Anthony Hopkins scene. I think you
Yeah,
need
it's true.
middle to break it up, but I don't think this is the best use of them. Harlan, what do you think of the main man himself, the gods in this film?
We He was good in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think, you know, Ryan Gosling brings that charm to every role,
Yeah,
and it was present in this movie. As much as other films, no. This is definitely a much more serious Ryan Gosling film, but it's not a brooding one.
I agree. I think it's an interesting one because it is a lot more of a normal man that he's playing. He always plays
Yeah.
someone a bit wacky or someone a bit, as you said, just stoic and miserable. He's always, I would say that every Ryan Gosling character falls on this scale of wacky to um to to I thought of a good word of it. Wacky to just miserable. Um,
Hmm.
and I
Okay.
think I think this falls pretty much damn in the middle, but I think it does work because by the end of the film, when he is really fighting this, I think you do get a bit more of the manic Ryan Gosling, and I think when that comes out, it really works because I think all this setup of him just being a normal guy makes this character a lot more like believable, and then it switches, and you're
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah, he really loses it. I think Ryan Gosling does really well once it gets into that third act. Definitely he was doing bad, but he definitely shines that third act. But like as like you were saying, it's pretty typical, man. Like this role could be played by like your Jake Gyllenhaal or like any
yeah.
leading man in
Well,
Hollywood
do
could
you
do
want
this part.
I've got a fun fact for you.
What's your fun fact?
A famous actor who auditioned for this role. Do you want to make any guesses?
If I cut it on the nose on stock white actor,
Yeah,
Chris Evans.
correct.
Really? Yes. And then he didn't get the role and went to Sunshine.
Yeah, that was such a good guess because you really, I think the genius behind that guess was you really nailed the era, right? You were like, who
Yeah.
is a super famous white guy now who wasn't in 2007? Chris Evans.
Chris Evans, yeah.
Chris Evans, yeah. I'm impressed. Well done.
Well, I'm
Do you think he
clip
would have
that
done any
chat.
good?
What did you say?
Do you think he would have been
Yeah,
any good?
I've Chris Evans has some pretty solid acting chops.
Yeah. Okay, here's a question. Let's just say, for argument's sake, Ryan Gosling is a 5 out of 10 in this role. What would you rank Chris Evans at?
Like, how do I think he would be?
Yeah, how you think he would be?
5 out of 10.
You said the same? Yeah, fair
I
enough.
think they would play it differently,
Yes.
but
I'd
I
kind
think
of,
they would. You know what? I might go maybe like a 4.5
I don't think he'd be as good. I don't, yeah,
because I feel like the way Ryan Gosling plays it, I think there's a little bit more, will he choose the good or bad job?
Yeah,
You don't really know. He's a pretty morally gray character at
yeah.
first, it feels like. Whereas Chris Evans, I feel like it may just be the him being Captain America for so long, but I think he would play it a little bit more like innocent and charming.
Yeah, yeah. Help me out. What other good films other than Knives Out has Chris Evans been in since Avengers Endgame?
Since Endgame,
Mhm.
not many.
So he's been in Knives Out, he's been in The Grey Man,
He's been in
um,
Ghosted.
Ghosted. I'm really struggling to I think Knives Out is his only good film post Endgame that I can think of.
Yeah,
Wait, was
I
he
want,
Lightyear?
what do you say?
Was he
He was
Lightyear?
in, yeah, he was Lightyear.
Okay,
That's right.
that's another not very good film.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
He was in Free Guy
There you go. Was he? Oh, he was for
for
like
like
one
half a
second.
second.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway,
Anyway.
Ryan Gosling, good. Nice, boring man haircut. I think they did a good job of making him look boring and normal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Anthony Hopkins, I mean, one of the best actors going. I think he is like, I think it feels stupid calling him an underrated actor, but I
He's
just don't.
knighted, bro. Like,
I just think a lot of the time he doesn't get the credence he like.
so are we moving on to co-star thoughts? Are we done talking
Yeah,
about the goss?
I think
Okay.
I'm done with the Gos. What I was saying about Anthony Hopkins, I just don't think people put him on the same level as like an Ian McKellen or a Patrick Stewart or people of that age of a certain caliber. And I think he's easily up there.
I do. But like I think anybody that looks at Anthony Hopkins as a less like I don't know, he's fantastic.
Hmm. What's your favorite line in this film?
I wasn't taking notes. What's your favorite line in this film? You definitely have an answer locked and loaded.
Yeah, I think once you hear it, you're gonna be like, "Oh, that's obviously what Dean said."
Okay.
There's a scene where the judge says, she's like, "Oh,
Oh, I know what you're gonna say.
do you have any evidence that the detective was sleeping with your wife?" And then he says, "My dick has evidence." And then she's like, "What?" He's like, "Oh, my dick. That's what I call my private investigator." And then he goes, "My dick's really good."
Yeah. Yep.
That's just good. If that,
As
I
soon
don't
as you
think that,
said the judge, I was like,
yeah,
oh, okay. I
I
know where
don't
you're
think I
going with
would have
this.
enjoyed that as much if it wasn't from Sir Anthony Hopkins. You know, just
Yeah,
coming from him, I'm like, yeah, this is good stuff.
that
Okay,
was awesome.
we're getting off track quite a bit this episode. Can I pitch to you a film?
It's foolish me. I thought the words that would come out of your mouth would be bringing us back on track, but I guess not. Let's continue.
Okay, it's a road trip film. Okay,
Okay.
about um three actors playing themselves. Okay, I'm coming up with this on the fly. Three actors playing
No
themselves.
way.
Their car has broken down and they need to road trip across America to get to the Oscars in time, and they're all nominated for Best Actor. And the three actors are Sir Anthony Hopkins, Sir Ian McKellen, and Sir Patrick Stewart.
I think you need to start a GoFundMe.
Like, tell me that's not an incredible. Imagine those three just in like this buddy comedy, all fighting over this Oscar, and then they realize the true Oscar is the friends they made along the way.
So the dad from Twilight's in this movie, but he
Is
doesn't
that
have a
how he is?
mustache.
I didn't realize.
Yeah, he doesn't have his mustache, and it's
Mm.
disturbing.
Yeah, he does shoot himself in the head though,
Spoiler! It's okay.
which which,
Spoiler.
which might be what that dad should have done in Twilight.
Hey, he's a good dad.
He's a good dad, but he's got a stupid daughter.
Mm.
He is good.
Ah, darn. My
um,
daughter's stupid.
Aunt Petunia's in this. She's the judge.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff.
Um, but I think when it comes to Coast, this movie is Ryan Gosling and Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, and Anthony Hopkins is so good
Yeah.
because because also I know I said the Silence of the Lambs parallel. The shot that really made me think it is when he was sitting in prison, like the first time you see him in prison, and it's like his back. I'm like, this
You know
could
what part I did really like?
what?
In the beginning of the film, the first time Ryan Gosling characters meets Anthony Hopkins' character, Anthony Hopkins goes like, "You should adjust your tie," and then he does that.
Yeah.
And it happened the other way at the end of the film,
Mm,
which I thought was done really well.
yeah, showing who's on the back foot and who's on the front foot because one of them sitting
Yeah,
there instantly, and yeah, um, yeah. I think a really solid thing of this character is that he's not outright evil. Like, he shot his wife. Like, that he committed this thing. But number one, he has a motive, and obviously, he shouldn't have still shot his wife, but he had a motive, and
correct.
then but then also, so his wife was cheating on him, and the man his wife is cheating on him was also a dick to him after the fact that he shot his wife. And I think the fact that he wasn't, Hannibal Lecter eating people and murdering them and blah blah blah. He was just this guy who'd done one thing and he was like getting out of it, I think made this character a lot more compelling because he wasn't evil. He was just, you know,
I think he's. I agree. He wasn't like a
he's not like a conniving villain, is what I'm trying to say.
yeah, but he definitely is a bad guy.
He's a bad guy, sure, but I think the fact that it's not like, oh, this guy's pure evil makes it a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I agree. So, with that,
Mm-hmm.
I think let's talk about the overall plot of the film.
Yeah,
Um, I think it. I did you figure out the twist ending? Not the
no,
twist ending, but like there was kind of a twist ending
sort of.
as to what should the gun.
Yeah, so this entire film, the whole thing has been there was a gun in his house after he shot his wife, but the gun had never been fired. It didn't have any fingerprints on, and blah blah blah. So they know. So that then this is the whole thing of being like, oh, how could I have shot her because I didn't have the gun? And then the whole, like, there's this whole subplot in the film of Ryan Gosling keep going back to the house and looking for the gun, and he keeps going, "Hey, you're not doing your job very well, police. Go to the house and look for the gun." So there's a lot of talk about finding this gun. And what is the reveal, Harlan?
The reveal is he swapped the guns with the cop's gun.
Yeah, the cop who was sleeping with his wife.
And I think it that was done really well because in the beginning of the film, you see him ca catch the wife cheating on him with the cop.
Yes.
And so you think like, oh, this is him finding it out, and then he kills the wife the same day.
Yeah.
But in actuality, that's not what happened, even though the movie is guiding you that way and told you that's what happened.
Yeah.
And instead, like that was when he took the cop's gun. And so that is I'm kind of getting lost in explaining it,
No, no, you made
but
sense.
it was
I
done really well.
I do have I have a few thoughts on the plot for you.
Okay, go for it.
Um, Something we haven't touched on is the fact that he didn't kill his wife when he shot her. He put her in a coma. And then this thing
Hmm.
of Ryan Gosling is visiting his wife a few times. And then when he gets out of prison, he goes and he pulls the plug and she dies then. Um,
Mm.
do you think this film feels a bit like Ryan Gosling still lost because she died?
Um, kind of, but not really.
Yeah.
Um, because he got what he was really defeated by was he let a man get away for it.
Yeah. And I think this whole thing, I think the fact that he was going to unplug her was introduced so late in the game as well.
Yeah.
Like, that is a difference. Okay, my second question for you
Hmm.
was in their final confrontation, Ryan Gosling shows up at Anthony Hopkins' house, and this is when he gets the big confession and blah blah blah. But he still, quote unquote, has no way to prove it. Did you think that Ryan Gosling was going to shoot him?
Okay, I didn't, but I thought that was a really smart way to add another layer of tension to the whole confrontation.
Yeah, part of me was like, I could see it happening. I like, because I could have seen this film the way it had been set up, the fact that, like I said, the wife had already been murdered, and she'd been killed after like being shot. I was like, I could see this film just ending in a real bad way, and like the whole mess and the message of the film is like, oh, there's more, like it's okay if you don't win at everything, and you should be looking out for people, blah blah blah. And I think this film equally could have told this message really effectively, is if the film ended up with Ryan Gosling being locked up. And I'm not saying
So
that's how the film should have ended, but I'm saying it could have.
it could have, but I also think other things would have to change in previous in the film for that to be a even somewhat satisfying
That's
ending.
true. Yeah.
And there is one, this may have been my favorite part of the movie,
Hmm.
is when before the dad kills himself, he
Yeah.
places a gun at the crime scene because they can't find a gun. They
Yeah.
can't find a gun, so the dad's like, I know he did. Not the dad. Not the dad.
The
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 the cheater, the police
the
officer,
cheater, the
detective,
police officer.
the dad from
He,
Twilight.
the dad from Twilight. Um, and so he places a gun at the crime scene because he knows this guy did it. He killed my girlfriend.
Hmm.
And he tells Ryan Gosling. Then Ryan Gosling's like, "Ah, okay." And so he gets his assistant to stand by to like out of nowhere be like, we found the gun, we found the gun. And then Anthony Hopkins is behind bars. And the entire time as the audience member, you're like, oh my God, the Anthony Hopkins character is expecting him to do this. This like, don't do it. And so like you see Ryan Gosling character struggle. He has his phone out ready to call this girl,
Yeah, and he
but then
has
he
the
chooses
opportunity.
not to. And I think at that moment, like the ending of him of Ryan Gosling behind bars wouldn't make sense. You know what I mean?
I
Like
do agree with that. Did you think that did in that scene? Did you think he was going to do it?
I didn't know. Like, at that point, considering they had already addressed, I was kind of expecting them to, but really hoping they wouldn't, because not like if he did it, that would be a pretty traditional move. You know, like a
I think
dumb
it's a lot
character.
more of a traditional Gosling character to fall for that. To like
Yeah,
go into this dark place, but the fact that this character doesn't, I think, really works.
I agree.
Yeah.
So we've kind of talked about this a little bit,
Hmm.
but the direction of this movie.
Yeah.
Um, as we addressed before, the cold open really works
Yeah.
at it, confusing the audience.
Hmm. Enticing.
Yeah, I really like that one of the characters was like just enhance the photo,
Mm.
and Ryan Gosling's character's like, what do you mean by that? How can I do that?
Which I
Because
think is
I
touched on.
know that's pretty like everybody now jokes about that in movies, but like during like this, that was
That's what I
a
was going to say. It's an advanced joke for 2007.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's kind of weird though because we already have kind of talked about the direction through our general thoughts on the film. Because I think
Yeah.
where this movie shines is its direction.
Yeah. And there's some, yeah, I would agree. There's nothing like when it comes to cinematography, there's nothing, you know,
No,
phenomenal, but that
they do some cool stuff with lights,
and they
overhead
do
lights.
I do think they do some cool stuff with like blocking of like making it look like Anthony Hopkins is behind bars when he's not and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Um, my favorite scene in the film, which we haven't actually discussed yet, is the first scene where these two meet. Oh, you mentioned it a little bit. And there's a bit where Anthony Hopkins talks about how, like, it's not the first scene they meet, it's when he goes and visits him in prison. And he
Mm,
starts talking about all these eggs, and he checked 1,000 eggs for his dad, and he found a fault with all of them. And he's like, hey, if I spend with a person long enough, I can find their fault. And I'm like, that's a cool character moment.
yeah, I agree. That was again, it just Anthony Hopkins being an awesome actor, but the scene was well done.
I'm just chucking that in there now
Yeah,
because yeah, we missed it earlier on. Do you want to move on?
yeah. So now we have what's our
We have
we have a
wild.
song for this, don't we?
Huh?
Don't we have a song for this?
Yeah, we do. Do
What's
you
the
want
song go like?
to? Welcome.
Nope. That's not it.
I don't
That's
remember.
incorrect.
It's been so long since we did this.
You know what? Let's pretend like we did it.
Okay.
Wow.
Do you know
Dean,
what it is?
you know what you should do?
What?
Do
Edit
you
it.
still have the files from previous recordings?
I can find it. Yeah.
Can you just put it in right now? Like, I'll clap, and that's when you put it in.
Okay.
And then after I clap, we're going to be like, wow, good job for us remembering.
Yeah.
Wild card, wild card. Wow. We really did know that song, didn't we?
We did, and I do have the old files. Okay. Um,
Excellent. Excellent. So for our wild card this week, we have mystery. Because at the end of the day, this is a mystery thriller, right? You put
yes.
it, categorize it that.
Yeah.
I think it does mystery well, be in a simpler way of Knives Out, of like, actually, I disagree.
With yourself.
Similar in some veins
Yeah.
to Knives Out, but not really. You know what happened.
Hmm.
You like there that never changed. When the movie starts, you know exactly
Yeah.
who killed this woman.
I think what works about this mystery is that it does quite a good job of making like not making you think there's not a mystery, but kind of making you not think about the mystery too much. Because I don't know about you, but I don't think at any point in that film I was really sitting there puzzling, going, "Man, what did happen to this gun?" I was a lot more interested in the actual character stuff that was going on. So when the mystery was revealed and they were like, "Oh, this is what happened to the gun," I'm like, "Oh, this is actually really quite interesting."
I was thinking about the gun, but I didn't figure put those two together, even though it was kind of obvious.
Mm,
Because I remember during the scene when he swaps the guns, not the flashback, but like the actual scene, I was like, oh, he just picked up his gun again, which
mm.
was kind of clunky, but whatever. But now it made a lot more sense. I thought that was well done.
Yeah, you are right. It was well done, and I think that yeah, it's a good little twist, and I think it's subtle. It's not the focus
Yeah,
of the
I
film.
agree. It's a weird case for a psychological mystery thriller where the
Mhm.
mystery isn't the focal point, but the
Yeah.
entire story hinges on it.
Yes. Yeah. And I really like when it comes to the mystery how they manage this. Speaking of our favorite mysteries, Glass Onion. It's a bit like how in Glass Onion it gets to a certain point in that film where Daniel Craig is like, "Oh, we definitely know he murdered this woman, but we just need evidence."
Yeah,
And I think it kind of gets to that point in this kind of the thing of this film where Ryan Gosling's like, "Oh no, he obviously did it. Just we need to actually like be able to catch him." And I think the way they catch him with like getting the bullet out of the woman's head after she dies and that sort of thing, I think works really well.
yeah. So, do we wrap this up? Do we give
Yeah,
our
I think
ratings
I
of
think I think
Fracture?
it's, I think it's rating time for
All
Fracture.
right.
How this works is to begin with, we're both going to give it an individual rating out of 10. Harlan, what is your gut telling you?
My guts, I'm going to give it an 8.
I'm going to give it an 8 as well. I had a really fun. I think like I think I enjoyed this film maybe more than I would have if I just watched this on a one-off, because I think it's quite a nice, um, relaxing change of pace from a lot of the Ryan Gosling films we've been watching. You know,
Yeah.
and I think I felt the same about The Notebook, that this film is just kind of a nice film, and like there's tension to it, and there's real moments that, like, I think it can be quite tense and interesting to watch, but I think they do enough other stuff here that makes it just not as harrowing as a lot of his other stuff.
It's a pretty it's not a bad turn your brain off movie, but like with movies like Stay,
Yeah.
you really think about it and think about the themes and the messaging and what it's trying to say about the world. There's, you know what I mean? But
Yeah,
this
I
one, it's
think
much
I just
more,
this film isn't as harrowing as something like, you know, Half Nelson.
yeah.
Yeah. What would
Um,
you give The Goz out of 10? It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because he isn't given as much to do, but he is good in this.
can you do me a favor?
Mhm.
Do you have a list up of our previous rankings?
Yeah. So
Keep.
Remember the Titans 5, The Believer 8. 6.5s were with the United States of Leland and the Slaughter Rule. Sevens went to Murder by Numbers and Stay. And at 8.5 went to Half Nelson and The Fall Guy. So I'm feeling around a 7.
I think I'm gonna give it a 7.5.
7.5, yes, that's half a point more than Stay and Murder by Numbers, which I could agree with. Yeah, I can get behind a 7.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
Final.
certainly has more to do. I don't think it's a iconic Ryan Gosling performance, but
No.
he certainly does well in a way that he hasn't done before, and I don't necessarily expect him to do after. I don't think, looking at his
Yeah.
filmography.
Yeah, I agree. Um, the final question is this character literally you? I kind of want to say yes because I hate losing.
And I hate British people. So perfect. It's two yeses on the board.
That is our second yes in this in 10 episodes.
I
Because,
feel like at a certain point we're gonna look like egotistical jackasses
yeah, because we're saying yes to.
because we just need to say yes to some. Because that's the name of this podcast.
But I also don't think this one makes us look that egotistical because he's a flawed guy. Like, the reason I feel like this guy is because we share the same fatal flaw of being too competitive.
Mm. And we share the same psychological flaw
Yeah.
of considering ourselves superior to British.
Okay, Harlan.
I wouldn't. I don't know if it's a flaw, but
Next week we're doing a mini-sode. Here's a fun little preview for you about our thoughts on the latest season of a TV show we talked about a lot on our last podcast, being The Boys.
the
Um,
boys.
and wait, give me, give me some time to think. I've still got it.
Ah,
I've still
you
got it.
still got it. You still got it. All right, can we end this now?
And then the week after that, the next Ryan Gosling film we were talking about is Lars and the Real Girl.
I love that movie.
I've never seen it.
Well, we're watching Lars and the Real Girl,
Yes.
so I know what that has to do with it.
Oh, I. Okay, guys. Goodbye.
Adios.
Whatever. Just this. I've decided we're stopping at 10.